Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. Today we have a Friday NBA slate. There is less than a week left in the season and things are starting to get really crazy. 13-game slate today, by far the biggest that we've had. We had a 12-game slate 2 days ago. These are the biggest slates that we've had like all year long, the new year, the entire NBA season. 13 games is a lot to hold in and sort of try to digest. I'd rather have a 13-game slate than a 3-game slate personally. Rather not have them all the time like we're having 2 out of 3 days now with a 12 and a 13. Just a lot overall to keep track of. Tons of late news came out on that 12-game slate with guys like Ricky Rubio, Jae Crowder being out, Joakim Noah being ruled out later on. Some things that we just didn't expect, like Rubio and Crowder. So you always have to stay up to date. You can have guys in your lineup that just get you complete zeros if you're going to bed too early or things like that, or if you have to take care of your kid. So that's why these slates are a little annoying. But personally, if I'm keeping up with it, I do like them. I like that the ownership doesn't matter as much. It's going to be naturally flatter since there's 26 teams and 100 viable players to choose from, rather than on a 3-game slate where there's like 20 viable players to choose from. So I do like that. I like that you don't have to factor in as much 1% guys killing you, because a lot of guys are going to be low owned just naturally. But if this is your first time to the channel, welcome to the channel. My name is Sal. I cover daily fantasy sports, and I try and do it in a different way, just giving you as much data and value as possible. I do this stuff each morning. Sort of do it for fun. I just enjoy doing it. I make a daily video. Going to be getting into the MLB soon. We are in the NBA right now. We'll cover the NBA throughout the playoffs, most likely, as long as there are decent prize pools on Draftkings, as long as I'll be playing pretty much, doing the work anyways. Might as well share it with all you guys and girls. And just in exchange, I just ask if you can hit me with a likes up on this video. It helps me out a ton. Trying to make this thing into my career. For the people that have asked, I am still waiting to hear anything from CBS. We did a little just like a little job put in. They're having a fantasy editor for content development and strategy, something that I love. I love marketing and I love content. So had some help with people just on Twitter reaching out and saying I would be a good fit. So thank everybody who did that. This weekend I will be announcing a winner for the people that helped on Twitter and tried to share the word. So for those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about, thank you for bearing through all of that. I might be disappearing a little bit, my shoulders, things like that. I have a green screen up. I'm wearing a green hoodie. It is cold in here, so I'm going to stick through it. So if you're seeing the ghost of Sal Vetri's past, just know that it is okay. It is fine. It is just a green screen. So tons of things to go over today. You'll see a bunch of stuff. If you're new here, you can get down below. I have 3 free strategy guides that I've written. I have some other Patreon link if you want NBA projections. An MLB sheet will also be coming out very shortly. And also the Discord down below there. Lots of stuff down there. You can just check out my Twitter, all that stuff. But let's get into it with the injury news like we usually do. So 13 games, 26 teams, tons of injury news. I don't believe we have as much as the 12-game slate. Oh, no, we do. We have way more. What am I talking about? There's about 50 names on this list. I think 48. I'm going to try and fly through it because, look, the injury news is important, but a lot of this will change. I just want to give you guys and girls just a brief overview, as briefly as I can, of what the slate's looking like. So in terms of Atlanta, a lot of guys with question marks today for them are just a few major ones. Taurean Prince, he's going to be probable. But Kevin Huerter is doubtful, and so is Kent Bazemore. Guys that play that small shooting guard, small forward position. It's going to help Taurean Prince in his minutes. You're going to imagine Justin Anderson will see another 30-minute game, and DeAndre Bembry's minutes should come up. For Boston, Jaylen Brown is doubtful. Marcus Morris has already been ruled out, and Al Horford is probable. Morris being out, I imagine they stay big, and they put Baines still at the 5, have him in for 25 minutes right now. Jaylen Brown being doubtful, most likely out, is going to give Gordon Hayward an elevated minutes, closer to that 30 minutes. Could also bump Al Horford a good amount. Marvin Williams, so for Charlotte, Marvin Williams is out and Cody Zeller both remain out. You're going to continue to get a Miles Bridges around 32 minutes for the bigs. You're going to get Willie Hernan-Gomez maybe playing 16 to 22 minutes. It's a wide range, but it really just depends on the game. Same thing for Bismack Biyombo. He's going to be getting around 15 minutes or so, filling the rest with a Frank Kaminsky, and so on. For Dallas, Jalen Brunson is questionable for rest. I never really get this questionable for rest thing. If you're going to rest the guy, you know it. I guess they're just waiting. I don't know. I really don't know why you put a guy questionable for rest. Luka is questionable for his thigh today. Luka right now is pretty much just playing for the Rookie of the Year, if anything. Still playing fantastic when he's out there. Dorian Finney-Smith is probable today. Guy's only seeing 12 or 13 minutes, so nothing major. And Dwight Powell is questionable today, also for rest. So a lot of things can get shaken up in Dallas today against Memphis, so keep an eye on this. Keep in mind also that Joe Bell's not in Memphis anymore. Their bigs are not that great defensively. Even if Noah is in, it's Noah and Ivan Robb and then Bruno Caboclo. Nothing that really scares me. So if you're going to get a Maxi Kleber playing 34 minutes today, could be potential value on this slate. Other guys like Justin Jackson should step in and play 30 minutes or so if we get news that Jalen Brunson and or Dwight Powell are out. So keep an eye on all that, especially if Luke is out as well. Interest would just be coming from the value there. Trey Burke would get a bump. Like I said, Justin Jackson, Maxi Kleber. But overall, it's a very unattractive spot in terms of pace, which we'll get into. For Detroit, Blake Griffin is questionable as a game-time decision. Luke Kennard played in the last game. He is probable. If Blake Griffin is out, it's going to be the Andre Drummond show. He played 43 minutes in the last game. The game stayed in regulation, only came off the court for 5 minutes. If you watch Andre Drummond play, he walks up and down the court. He is in no rush at all, but, I mean, he gets his rebounds, 20 plus, and he gets his points, especially when he misses his easy layups and then gets more points. If you actually watch a full Detroit game, which I've watched many times this year because I've been rostering what should be 10K, still 9,900, not quite there. They're trolling us. Andre Drummond. If Blake Griffin is out, I want more of that. I think Von McCurr also becomes at least in play, but not somebody that I will want to play. Golden State, Iggy, and DeMarcus Cousins, they said yesterday, will be out for rest. Steph gets the biggest bump when Cousins is off the court, and now he goes up against Colin Sexton. This is just going to be a phenomenal spot for Steph, but overall, this game looks like it's going to become a massacre. Wesley Matthews is questionable, and Darren Collison is doubtful today, so I imagine you're going to get Corey Joe and Tyreek Evans continuing to see 30-plus minutes if Matthews is out. If Matthews is in, it's going to depend on who starts. If Corey Joe starts, I like him more so to get upper 30s, but they're both going to see high 20s in minutes is what I would assume. Patrick Beverley is questionable today. I say he leans probable. He has a good matchup against the Lakers. Keep an eye on that. Landry Shamet would get a bump. So it can't think of the other guy. Yeah, Garrett Temple would also get a bump. For the Lakers, you have Kuzma still questionable and Reggie Bullock questionable. Keep an eye on that. Good matchup versus the Clippers, especially for the bigs. JaVale McGee gets a bump if Kuzma's out, and you're also going to get more Mo Wagner, going to get a pretty nice bump as well. If Bullock is out, Pope's going to continue to get run, as well as Caruso and some Lance Stevenson. Memphis, you already have Joe Val out for the year. Avery Bradley remains out. Joakim Noah questionable, so this is actually important. And Mike Conley doubtful. If Joakim Noah is out again, Ivan Robb is still a fine play. I have him in for, I believe, 33 minutes today, 32 minutes. And if you're going to get Dwight Powell out, I don't know who can really, I mean, Ivan Robb's not no force, but who's really going to defend him in what would be a great matchup. So keep an eye on the Noah news. I mean, DeLon Wright becomes still in play, as well as Tyler Dorsey. Their minutes should be around 30 to 32, if not higher. And if you get Luka being out, it's just, or even Brunson, it's just a great matchup all around for these Memphis guys. But on, again, 13-game slate, where am I going to go? Potentially there, but we'll have to see what else is opening up as we scroll now, since there's so many goddamn names on this. Holy cow. We're really going to be able to scroll the whole way. So Josh Richardson's supposed to be missing like 2 weeks or so. So if they make the playoffs, that could actually hurt Miami a decent amount. Dion Waiters is probable. Derek Jones Jr. is questionable. That's the Miami news. Josh Richardson being out, I would imagine it's going to slide a guy like, and this might depend on Derek Jones Jr. Derek Jones Jr. might just start the 3 if he is healthy, and you get Waiters at the 1. Waiters came off the bench in the last game, though, so it's interesting. Do you get Goran Dragic at the 1 and Derek Jones Jr. at the 3, or Waiters at the 3, because he can play small forward? So keep an eye on that lineup. If Dragic is in, he's definitely going to be more so in play than if he's coming off the bench. For Minnesota, just Taj Gibson, doubtful. He's been out for a while now. Anthony Tolliver gets a bump, as well as Dario Saric. Nothing really there against Miami. That's intriguing. New Orleans versus Phoenix, going to be a sprint. There's no Devin Booker. It's going to be a sprint of a bunch of awful guys, and if Anthony Davis decides to be probable and then out again, it's going to be a sprint of a bunch of terrible guys all around. So Anthony Davis is probable today. I think he's actually very much in play, 6,500 against this Phoenix team that is god-awful. Again, centers at 6,500. The ceiling on Anthony Davis is very well close to 50 today, even in 21 minutes, which is just ridiculous. I think I have him projected for right around 42 points today if he plays 2 points per minute. That's how good of a spot this is. Imagine if he was going to be playing a full 35 minutes or so. Frank Jackson remains out with a concussion. You'll get dusty old Ian Clark starting there for around 32 to 34 minutes. Nothing really is attractive, but again, value. For New York, lots of things to watch here. So Dennis Smith Jr. is questionable, as well as Allonzo Trier. Kadeem Allen already ruled out. Noah Vonleh already ruled out. Mario Hezonja started the last game at the 4, but he was promised earlier in the year that he would get to play in Orlando. Revenge game, and Fizdale stuck to that promise after Hezonja was out of the rotation. I don't expect Hezonja to play again today. At least right now, I'm projecting it that Luke Cornett starts and Hezonja gets pretty much dwindled back down. He had a great game, so maybe that keeps him in the rotation for a few more games, which is really all that's left on the year. So keep an eye on that. That's some big news if we get Luke Cornett starting. I would imagine we do. If Dennis Smith Jr. is out, it's a big bump for Emmanuel Mudiay. He's been playing huge minutes, 36 and 40 in the last 2 games. I have him projected, I think, right now for 35 minutes. If Dennis Smith Jr. is ruled out, then that's pretty much 18 to 22 minutes or so that he can wipe out and spread around. I would then have Mudiay projected for closer to 36 to 38 minutes. Same thing for Allonzo Trier. If he is out, give more minutes to Dotson. Phoenix, Devin Booker has been shut down for the year, so is Tyler Johnson. DeAndre Ayton has not been shut down yet, although he should. He's out once again. Rashawn Holmes is probable today, and TJ Warren remains out. He really should be shut down as well. So Holmes in a great matchup. You target New Orleans with the bigs. Absolutely great matchup for Holmes. DeAndre Ayton being out, primarily beneficiary is Holmes. Now, in terms of shooters, Devin Booker's gone now. Who does this team have? There's going to be a lot of just possessions and a lot of shots. Josh Jackson is probably the primary beneficiary. I have him in for 35 minutes right now. He is probably the one who's going to gun it the most. McCall Bridges is not an effective shooter. Eli Okabu, he should be seeing more run. He started over DeAnthony Melton in the last game, but he's not going to shock anybody. I think the minutes right now just get evenly distributed. I think you see a 20-minute spot out of Jimmer. I think you see around 20 minutes out of Melton. I think you see 25 or so out of Okabu, and that's really where you're going to see the split up of these 36 to 38 minutes of Booker coming from, dwindling down to them. A minute or two goes to Josh Jackson. He gets to 35. McCall Bridges gets to around 35. But nothing overall, at least, well, here's the thing. You have value here, and it's a phenomenal game spot. But outside of Rashawn Holmes and Josh Jackson, I don't really want to play Jimmer. I don't really want to play Melton. I think it's a big slate, and I don't have to go there. Those guys' ceilings are significantly limited, I would say. Portland, CJ McCollum remains out, so fire up your Lillards if you have been liking him. Marco Bellinelli pops up on the injury report. He usually doesn't. He's a nice value if he's in at 3,900 against a terrible Washington defense, especially now that Bradley Beal is playing less. Maybe that does improve it, though. I'm not positive. OG Anunoby, he is quite probable today for Toronto. Only guy on their injury report. No real impact there. Utah, tons of news here. So Derek Favors is out. Kyle Korver is out. Jae Crowder is probable, and so is Ricky Rubio. They both rested in the last game. Them being back, it's going to throw Thabo Sefolosha out of the starting lineup, as well as Raul Neto, who is questionable today. And then for Washington, Jabari Parker's done for the year. And Jeff Green, who's been getting some DNP-CDs, did not participate, coach's decision, is now supposed to be playing today. I think I have him in for only like 18 minutes, but Jabari is done for the year. So that was a lot of news. Happy you stuck through it. I hope it didn't give you a headache. If you're still here, let me know you stuck through the news. That was a ton. What was that, 48 names? Hit me with a thumbs up. Let's get on to this target offense sheet. All right, so the target offense sheet here, 26 teams on it. I'm probably not going to spend much time on this at all. I will go through some of the things that stand out in terms of pace. When there's a ton of teams playing, you're just going to have naturally a ton of slower teams playing each other, which makes it for unattractive spots in games. On a 13-game slate, there is no need to stack a team. If you're entering 150 lineups, and I've said this before, and you want to take advantage of the 6% of games that go to overtime, and you want to throw 6 lineups in for all the games that have a close spread, like some of these that have a 1-point spread, a 2-point spread, maybe even a 5-point spread, then go for it. But I imagine many of you watching this are not entering 150 lineups. So the most logical thing that I could say for you to do is not game stack. I mean, on a 3-game slate, you game stack galore. That's what you should be doing, and you're naturally going to be getting 5 guys from the same team just because there's less options. On a slate like this, you can pick your value from certain spots, and you can pick your studs from certain spots. If they end up being in the same game, fine, but don't try and go about it like that. So in terms of just high totals, I think it's very still important to target games that have high totals in terms of where your studs are or where your value may lie over games that don't. If it's a close decision, that could be one that helps you out. But at the end of the day, the target offense sheet today for me is going to just be looking at spots that there's good matchups in terms of just teams that just rebound poorly. You have some of that ratings here in terms of just this part right here, defense versus efficiency. In terms of the pace in Vegas total, look, I'm always looking for games that are paced up in the total, so I'll glance at it. But once again, today, less than usual, will I put an emphasis on the total and pace because there's so many games and there's so many options to find value today that I could probably get to any player that I want. And if I think they're in a fine spot and the total's 5 points lower than a better game where there's a guy in a less fine spot, I'm going to be going after the guy who's in a better spot, in my opinion. With that being said, we could look at the fastest paced game projected for today, and it is a quick one. Both teams in LA today, 107 pace for the Clippers and the Lakers combined today. Look, The Lakers are a headache. If there's 26 teams on the slate, the team that I want to focus on the least is probably the Lakers. And the Knicks are on this slate. I feel better about Moutier and Mitchell Robinson getting their minutes today than I feel about any of these Lakers guys, including Rajon Rondo, including will Kyle Kuzma play, and we won't know at lock. And on the opposite side, the Clippers, I mean, Lou Williams is going to have a great matchup. So is SGA. These guys are going to have great matchups. Beverley, if he plays. Even Harrell, they're all going to have great matchups. You could have the Zubac revenge game for his 20 minutes that'll be on the court if you really want to dig that deep. This is a spot where the pace is beautiful. It's a 230 projected total. That might have changed. A lot of these games are not out yet for the totals. You have phenomenal matchups for SGA, and I want to see what his price is because I haven't looked at pricing at all. If he was 3,300, I'd play him in a heartbeat. 6,100, which isn't awful, but again, 6-game slate. Will we find value at guard? I don't know where the value currently lies. I have not looked into the salaries. I don't know if it's loose. I don't know if it's a stars and scrubs, which I imagine it probably will be. But that game's just not attractive to me. Who on the Lakers do you feel good about playing? Against the Clippers, I'd feel good about McGee if he gets his minutes. Maybe a little bit of Kuzma now that his price is below 6K if we know he's starting with full run. Lakers on a back-to-back, so it scares me a little bit for McGee. Outside of that, on the other side with the Clippers, not much that stands out outside of SGA, and maybe you get a Lou Williams explode game here. It's the optimal spot for him to do it. But again, that's a spot where this is usually a very attractive game environment, 230 total, 107 possession per team pace. Lots of great individual matchups. The Lakers, McGee against the Clippers, the guards for the Clippers against this Lakers team. But it's just not a spot on a 13-game slate where I'm looking at it and saying, yeah, I want to play Lakers and Clippers today. They're two teams that are really hard to ever get right. You can go Gallo. He's in a fine spot. But I think there's just better options overall. We can look at another pace-up spot here or a fast-paced game. Phoenix and New Orleans. And I think that this is a spot where you can attack a little bit more because there is that value in it. This will probably be one of the most targeted games. I believe it will be the highest total. I don't know if this total is correct. It is one that was projected on OddsShark. 234 total, 106 pace, pretty much similar, if not better, in terms of the total than this Lakers and Clippers game. Phoenix and New Orleans, no Devin Booker. What are we going to see today? It's going to be hard to tell, really. You're going to get Okabu at the 1. Are you going to get a Melton and Okabu today? I mean, this whole team is done. Their whole starters are done right now. TJ Warren, Kelly Oubre, DeAndre Ayton, Booker, you name them. There's probably more than I'm missing right now. Josh Jackson out there makes a ton of sense. Is he below 6K? He would become one of the best plays on the slate. He is 5,900, probably one of the best plays on the entire slate. He's going to be getting huge minutes here, played 34 back-to-back games. He has that 52-point ceiling that he did a couple nights ago. Don't expect it, but if it was to come, this environment would be the one. Game should stay competitive. Phoenix side of the ball, huge interest in Richaun Holmes. Outside of Josh Jackson, it would be Richaun Holmes for me. Potentially the best matchup on the entire slate in terms of going up against this New Orleans team, who is just absolutely dreadful against centers. And Richaun Holmes has nobody to fear today, especially if we get news that Anthony Davis is going to be mysteriously out once again. You can go Dragon Bender if you want to find value. You can go Eli Okabu. You can even go Jimmer Fredette if you want to find really good value, or not good value, but just really cheap value in a tournament. I'm personally just going to be sticking with probably the Josh Jacksons and the Richaun Holmes. Holmes' price is now 6,200, so the price has come up, but he's still too cheap in my book. Okabu is only 3,200, so if he comes in and does what he did last game, he started, played 25 minutes. I imagine he starts and plays even more minutes, and you don't have how many minutes Booker was on the court for in that last game next to him. We could check. Booker was on the court for only 8 minutes, so he got hurt early, so 8 minutes isn't a big bump. So I could imagine Okabu is going to be playing closer to 30 minutes today. These guys are all blowout proof, even though the game should stay close. They're just all pretty much bums. $3,200, he might be the most owned player on the slate, and if that ends up happening, if he gets ridiculously high ownership on the 26-team slate, look, $3,200 for a starting point guard in a pace-up spot against New Orleans, I'm hard-pressed to say fade him if he starts again. Now, obviously, we're not going to get that news. They could very easily start Melton. I think each of them get upper to low to mid 20s in minutes. Melton, I would like to see Okabu starting. I would have big interest in him at 3,200. What is Melton's price? 3,600. So yeah, Okabu's the guy at 3,200 in terms of just where the value in a good spot. And this is a definition of good value. Is there production to be had? Yes, the entire starters, I just listed them now. Booker joins that list for this team going to be out. It's projected to have a high total with a fast pace against a putrid defense. And if this guy is going to be projected anywhere near 30 minutes, which I think I have him right on 30 minutes today, at $3,200, you can expect around at the very least low to mid 20s in points with the upside of more. So for me, now that I know the price of 3,200, it's going to be Eli Okafor 1, number 2 Rashawn Holmes, number 3 Josh Jackson from the Phoenix side. From the New Orleans side of the ball, if we're going to get full run out of Alfred Payton, he could not be in a better spot. Alfred Payton's price is 7,100. That might be a little bit too steep, and he has not been playing the triple-double Alfred Payton. He came back down to earth. New Orleans, it's tough for me. I mean, you can have Ian Clark if you really want to double up in value and try and get up on this slate. He is only, wow, I said only, he is now $4,600. Had finally a good game the last time out. No real interest in Ian Clark for me at that price. I thought he was still in the 3K range. New Orleans, yeah, New Orleans side of the ball, look, Anthony Davis at 6,500. I think in all formats, he's a fine play. If indeed he goes out there for his 21 minutes, I would be very hard-pressed to believe he doesn't score 35 fantasy points here in this ideal matchup. I would actually be surprised if he goes below 40. I have him projected for, I think, 42 or somewhere around there, with a 50-point ceiling well in play today against this New Orleans team. Julius Randle, you can obviously go to. Christian Wood's price is way too high for a guy who will be playing 20 minutes off the bench, and he only played 20 minutes off the bench in the last game with Davis out. If Davis miraculously is in, I'm not expecting Davis to be in. I just don't think he plays again this year. He's been having multiple probable tags in a row, and he just sits out, so I think the same thing will happen. I think they're just messing with DFS players at this point because everybody tags their Twitter account and says, what the heck. So, yeah, New Orleans, there's really no interest for me here. Julius Randle, you can go to. He's priced up a little bit. I don't really know what else to look at. He has an ideal matchup. If he's going to play 32 minutes, it's fine. Outside of that, it's really the Phoenix side of the ball. That's where I think you find a lot of the value and a lot of the potential ceiling upside in this fast-paced game. Where else should we look, gang? You can see there's a ton of games below the league average in pace. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games on a 13-game slate that are going to be below league average in pace. So like I was saying from the jump, the pace today for me is just not going to really come into play nearly as much. So yes, I'm not going to break this down any further than that. It is a lot. I could spend 3 hours here, and as a one-man show, as much as I would really like to actually spend a lot of time and break down the entire slate, I just can't. I would spend the whole day breaking down, or I would spend 2 hours breaking down this slate for a bunch of news to come out that would make everything I just talked about pretty much irrelevant. Tyler Zeller to sign with the Grizzlies for the rest of the season, so that's important if he plays today. I doubt it. He might have to pass a physical, but we shall see. Early interests, zip, zada, zero, none. Look, there's 13 games on this slate. I haven't even looked at the salaries. You guys and girls can tell that based on the fact that I was just looking up the salaries for all these players. I cannot even tell you an early interest, and even if I did look through it and I was like, oh, I like these guys, it would be a complete waste of my time because just like the last slate, my lineup for the 2 games ago, for the 12-game slate that I actually had a very good night on, a close sweat for first place. I think I came in 8th in the 50K prize pool, very big sweat late. That was a decision that was made at 6:59. I ended up putting in Andre Drummond and Thomas Bryant over Karl Anthony Towns and Christian Wood. I thought about it more and I said, why am I playing a guy who's coming off the bench, even if he will get 28 minutes, which he didn't, Christian Wood, when I can get Thomas Bryant, who's going to get me 33 plus minutes. So that was just clear as day, and I made that decision really quick. So my lineups will not be set until 6:59, and then I late swapped twice on that night. That's stuff that you have to do. I would have not have won a penny. I would have lost all my buy-ins. I ended up turning it into $25 or $3,000 profit that night because I late swapped. I late swapped off of Tyler Dorsey and Rashawn Holmes and Jae Crowder. So thank God Jae Crowder was out. I would have never made a move to Thabo Cephalosha, but dust. But then I got Ivan Robb, and I got a guy who played very well in Jamal Murray. He had a great first half. If that game stayed any closer and he didn't get pulled in the fourth, he would have probably scored 50 points for fantasy. So what I'm trying to say is on a 3-game slate, I can put my early interest in. Most of the people won't be ruled out, and the slate probably won't get shaken up that much. Even if the guys that you like aren't ruled out today, even if they're all fine and still in, you're losing money by not adjusting to what the rest of the slate looks like. If a guy like randomly, I don't know, if a guy like Chris Paul is out today, it becomes very evident that James Harden is a much better play. Even if you were never on him and you weren't on Chris Paul and you don't think it affects your lineup, it does, because now the ownership on James Harden and getting to him matters that much more, and the whole lineup construction changes. So if you want to be contrarian, you play less James Harden, but you build a lineup around optimizing a different lineup construction than the people who are building for James Harden. And if you want to get to James Harden, you obviously have to get to James Harden. So that's just a rough example if something was to happen today. But just because your lineup specifically, if you're building early in the day, is not impacted, that does not mean that it's not impacted. It is very much impacted. The entire slate changes. There's no reason for me to give you early interest 15 or 20 names that right now probably won't even matter come 5 hours from now. So that is it. That is the target offense sheet. I will post it in the Discord, which I've been slacking on, but I will do that right now once this is done. If you watched the whole video, let me know. It's a much different video because I don't talk about specific players nearly as much because it's just overwhelming. I mean, just making the projections, which if you want the projections today, go to the Patreon page. I appreciate it. Appreciate the support. You know what stinks about Patreon? There's a ton of people that signed up at the beginning of this month, and it doesn't charge up front. It charges at the end of the month. But then there was a good amount of people who left before they got charged. So there's probably like 10 to 15 people who I've been making projections for, which I don't know who specifically. Like I would have left too. You don't want it to recharge, right? But just Patreon itself is just pretty shitty because it doesn't charge people if they've been there for the majority of the month, as long as you're gone in time. So that kind of stinks. I'm gonna have to try and figure out a way to get the charges to go through a little bit quicker. And they have a terrible customer service, so don't use Patreon. They stink. It's as simple as that. But right now, it is easier than me trying to figure out how to build a website. Pretty overwhelmed. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. Peace out.